Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Thank you for the warm introduction and welcome. It's really good to be here with you all. Good to be back. Is all good with audio, video? Everyone hearing me okay on the Zooms? Yes, beautiful. I'm going to talk today about my own practice of equanimity, especially in these times, in this world that just feels like, it always feels like a lot, but it's a lot right now. And yeah, so I just want to talk a little bit about my own practice and think about this question of what does our equanimity look like in these times of conflict and war and struggle and maybe even collapse of systems that we've relied on. So just to explore that, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And when you look up this word equanimity in the dictionary in English, one of the definitions is mental calmness, composure, evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. So that's the English definition, and I think as I've learned now over many years, couple decades of this practice about equanimity, I feel like that's maybe what I thought it was, in learning about it earlier on in my practice. And I think it's sometimes, as I've been in Buddhist communities and especially part of being a leader and in governance in communities, I feel like sometimes this understanding that gets put out as this Buddhist idea of equanimity. When I encounter attitudes of if you're angry, you're being unskillful. That's sometimes a message I've received in different spaces, and that if you're really equanimous, you're calm, composed, even of temper in all of these different situations. And I want to challenge that, because that's not my experience. And I think that that actually is a misunderstanding, or maybe a mistranslation of this quality of equanimity that the Buddha taught about. And so just to I know that you all have a long relationship with equanimity as well, but just to kind of recap a little bit, this quality of equanimity is also translated, maybe a more direct translation of the word upekkha, which is the Pali word for equanimity, would be balance. And I think that's something we also hear in the teachings. It's cultivating. Often it's a balanced mind. I would maybe, for me, my experience is more like a balanced heart. And in, even translating the word mind is often thought of in Buddhist, in the teachings, more as mind-heart. It's not so much a separation, the way that we sometimes think of, we've got the mind and the heart, the body, that these are all separate things. And in the teachings, they're much more integrated, more one thing. So I would propose a balanced heart. And other words that really speak to me to this quality is steadiness, capacity, resilience. I also find in it connection, responsiveness, kinship, and more recently what I've been finding this quality of intimacy in this practice of equanimity. It's like being intimate with everything that I'm experiencing. And I've actually been away for a while. I went this past winter to South Africa to do long retreat at a very small Buddhist retreat center called Dharmagiri, which is in the Drakensberg Mountains of South Africa. An incredibly beautiful place to go if you ever have the chance. If you ever find yourself literally on the other side of the planet, it's just an incredibly beautiful spot. The retreat center was started by two teachers, Tanissa and Kitasaro, who you may have heard of. They live not far from here up in Sebastopol. And they were there for about 20 years, building this retreat center, really working with local, mostly Black South Africans to support people with AIDS. If you have been part of the San Francisco Insight community at all, they came and talked about that project a lot, especially in the 90s and the aughts. That's when I first heard about their work there. But they left, I think in 2012, and have really turned it over to the leadership of South Africans of color. So it's a really beautiful place. They're leading retreats there in Zulu. It's a very unique, something I would like to see more of here is like this connection between Buddhism and indigenous spirituality that they've really cultivated in this place in South Africa. So anyway, I'm coming back kind of from long retreat. I was there for 3 months, and then the last 2 months or so I spent down in San Diego just house sitting for my sister and kind of transitioning back into this world. And San Diego's like a soft landing. It's like a little bit of a Deva realm down there. Sunny and warm, and people because there's so many different political views down there, people just don't, they don't get into it as much. So it was like a soft place to land. I did a lot of swimming. And so I'm really just in this last 2 weeks coming back to the Bay Area, coming back to my home, and back to really paying attention to what's happening in the world. I was definitely when I was in South Africa, I didn't expose myself to any news. I didn't see another person from the United States for 3 months. And I've been just gradually coming back. So I've been noticing my own equanimity practice in this transition, and that it was one practice in the mountains, sitting on Mveleni Mountain in South Africa for 3 months. That was one experience of equanimity, and then transitioning back, it's been another experience. So that's just kind of really given me a lot to reflect on. And so just to give a little flavor of this practice with the mountain in South Africa, a lot of it was just sitting and being with the natural world. I spent a lot of time just sitting and looking at the mountain, which often meant it's high up, about 5,000 feet. It's the monsoon season, so it's just storms are always coming through. It rains a lot there, and often there's just mist. So often in the morning it's just shrouded in fog and mist. And sometimes that lasts the whole day. So it would be I would get up and I would position myself pointing towards the mountain, but it would just be looking at the mist or looking at the clouds, and then maybe there'll be a moment where the mountain does this dramatic reveal. The clouds part, and there it is. And then sometimes it just disappears again in another few minutes. It's the mountain felt very very glamorous, very like it was like wrapping itself up in the clouds and the mist, and then, you know, peeking out and then covering itself up again. So that was just like, oh, I'm just here with these changing conditions relating to the mountain, whether I can see it or not. Some days, I remember one day, it was just like a beautiful day. It was summer in South Africa. And so then one day it's like I wake up and it's sunny, it's gorgeous, it's in the 80s. I walk down to the river. It's just about an hour's hike away, and swimming in the river, and it's hot, beautiful, and I hike back, and like by the time I get back to the retreat center, it's dropped 20 or 30 degrees. It's hailing. Like, I took a picture. They're like, not quite golf ball, but really big hail. And yeah, so a lot of it was just like being with the storms that would come through, or being with like the incredible, beautiful summer weather, and then knowing it's going to change at any moment. It was just like very getting to be with this part of just the impermanence of all of the conditions, and in a way of just getting to observe it all, getting to see it all come through, including all these incredible electrical storms and hail and you know, these dramatic changes. And then like the internal experience was pretty settled. You know, I was there for a really, you know, substantial amount of time, doing the same practices every day, to get to really feel this incredible settling in my mind, heart, body, in my nervous system, feeling this connection to place, to this mountain. Spent a lot of time just sitting with rocks and really feeling this quiet, this settledness, and this like getting to really settle into a confidence in my own practice holding me in that place. So that's like one experience of equanimity that has just so much ground, steadiness, the changes, but the changes being held in this really steady base. And sometimes like this quality of equanimity gets described as it's like the ocean. You know, the ocean at the top might be, you know, storms, dramatic waves, the wind, these different very dramatic conditions. And then if you go down into the depths, it's quiet, it's still. Those waves don't make it all the way down to the depths. And so sometimes that's a way, you know, that this quality of equanimity is taught about. And I feel like even in that description, there's this slight maybe prioritizing of that stillness at the depth of the ocean. Like we're trying to get away from all of those waves on top. And so I feel like in my time away, there was this chance to get to experience this steadiness while observing the waves. And then now I'm coming back into this world where I'm much more up in the waves. Just being back here, coming back to reading the news, all of the feelings that arise in, you know, hearing what's going on, fear, anger, grief. Those are really present, and you know, just like moving back into my space, I've been just noticing these waves. I'm really in the waves of grief, sometimes waves of anger that aren't even connected to anything. Yeah, so I just like, okay, I'm up here in the waves, and that this, while it's not that like experience of really being in the steadiness, the groundedness of my practice when I was on retreat. Nonetheless, that's there. Even though maybe when I was on retreat, I was more in this place of steadiness, and now I'm more in this place of the wild waves, but still remembering that both of those are within this experience of equanimity. The waves and the stillness, the storms and the sun. So just like continuing to like touch into that, like, okay, I'm up here in the waves and I still have access to this steadiness that's still there. Yeah, and I think, I want to like particularly, I think one of the things I'm always really interested in is like how am I holding my equanimity in the realm of strong emotions? Maybe being a person with strong emotions, that's really of interest. And also because I really am interested in bringing my practice into daily life, into the places where I'm in relationship with others, where I'm really responding to what's happening around me and what's happening within me. And I think in relating to equanimity in particular, sometimes we talk about the near enemy and the far enemy of equanimity. So the far enemy, to start with that, is like, what's the opposite of equanimity? So that is often talked about as just like our craving and aversion, like that we're grasping onto something or we're pushing something away. So this like balanced heart of equanimity is not doing either of those things. It's finding this balance, neither grasping for something that we feel we need to be okay, or pushing away something that, again, we feel like if this thing weren't here, I would be okay. But to just be okay with the presence of what we don't want or the absence of something that we want. That we're still in a place of, I'm okay here, even in these conditions. So craving and aversion. I would also just say like reactivity, just like the, maybe sometimes in our close relationships, someone says something and we're just like, I can't stand it when you say that. There's that like reaction before we even think about where, like, how do I want to be in relationship to this person? We might already find ourselves in a big reaction. And then also I'd say like a part of the opposite is attachment to outcome. That I need a particular outcome for things to be okay. And the equanimity is, I'm finding some place to be okay regardless of what the outcome is here. So that's the far enemy, the opposite. And then the near enemy is indifference, like kind of a detachment that's not, I'm okay, whatever happens. It's like, I'm actually gonna just not feel this. That kind of detachment. Or you could say avoidance, like avoiding, it could be avoiding a situation, avoiding a feeling, avoiding like exposing ourselves to the things that might upset us. That would also be this kind of near enemy. It sort of looks like equanimity. It might look like we're calm, we're okay, we're composed, but actually we're avoiding the things that might upset us. So we could also call that bypass or spiritual bypass. And sometimes we can use our practice to do this very thing of avoiding that which might be upsetting. So like I notice sometimes in myself, sometimes in others, like people go on retreat and they come back and they're like more sensitive to the world. And that I'm finding that right now. Like I'm more sensitive to everything. Like everything hits me really hard because I've had this time to really be, like really open myself up to my environment and to what's happening. And now I'm like, wow, I'm really raw. Like I'm really feeling everything. But to know that that's being present, that's being with what's really happening. And of course, I want to be discerning about how much I'm exposing myself to. So I don't want to like be scrolling on the news all day, right? But I want to know what's happening. So how can I be discerning about how much I'm taking in? And that, I think, is not a bypass. It's just being like realistic about our capacity, being realistic about my own capacity to keep an open heart with a lot of input. So that's, I think that discernment is different than a bypass. So just to, be looking at that. But yeah, so that just like helps us know what is this quality of equanimity. It's not indifference. It's not caring. It's not feeling. It is caring, being impacted by our own states and what's around us. And like finding the balance and the steadiness within that. And I often think when I'm thinking of this quality, I think about trees. I really love practicing with a tree, just like sitting, I've got a few different trees near where I am in downtown Oakland and I go and hang out with. And I think of the Buddha and how like it actually literally was enlightened by saying, I'm going to sit with this tree until I become enlightened. He didn't just sit down anywhere. Like he sat down with a tree. And that always feels really significant to me. And there's all of these places that trees show up in the story of the Buddha, which is maybe another talk for another time, but I come back to this like quality of, to me, the trees really are both, have this steadiness, this uprightness, this strength, but also this flexibility, like the capacity to be affected by the storms and come back to that upright posture. And in particular, when they're in a forest, like the whole storm will come through and the whole forest is moving. But actually, because all the trees are together and roots are all interconnected, even between different species of trees, that forest is very, very, very strong and can withstand a great deal of force. So I think of the trees, and I have this one particular tree that's been like an inspiration and a teacher. It's this tree that's over in the Oakland Hills in the Leona Heights. There's like a park called Leona Heights. And this tree is the oldest tree in the whole East Bay Hills. It's probably, it could be as old as 800 years old, a redwood. And it's called Old Survivor because it literally survived the time in the 1800s when pretty much the entire Bay Area was logged to build all the houses here in San Francisco, to build ships. The second half of the 1800s was sort of like a tree apocalypse here, where like every single tree was cut down, especially the redwoods, and especially in like the East Bay Hills, the North Bay, all around those trees. There were huge old trees in those hills, and they were all used for all cut down and used for lumber. But this one tree is still there. And partly why it's still there is because it's actually quite an unassuming tree. It looks like it's been hit by lightning a couple of times over its life. It's not very tall. It's kind of scraggly. It's hard to see. You have to have someone point the tree out to you. It's not like you see it as this huge tree. It's sort of just in with the other trees. But I think of this tree and like, what has this tree seen over its long life? It's gone through this time of incredible loss. It was there when when the Ohlone people were thriving in this area. It was here, it saw the first Europeans come here. Like, it's seen so much. And it's also experienced really difficult things, and I'm sure fires have come through, it's experienced lightning strikes. It's like experienced all of these things. And it just like, for me, it connects not just to this quality of equanimity, but also this impermanence, like that things just keep changing. And certainly I've experienced that in my life. I'm guessing you all have experienced that in your life. Like, so much has changed. I was just recently reading Rebecca Solnit's latest book called The Beginning Comes After the End, which I highly recommend. And she is, talking about like the big cycles of change, just what she's observed in her own life, and she's in her 60s. And looking particularly at the experience of women, of queer people, indigenous people, people of color in this country, and all that has changed. Like, how much, just for her as a woman, how much has changed since she was a young person, how much more freedom she has now, how much our just understanding of like what's okay or what's ethical has changed. And like, not that we're still in all of that, but she's pointing to all the things, really positive changes that have happened, as well as the ways that sometimes things just need to come to an end, collapse, break down, in order for some of those changes to happen. And so it's really like relating to these natural cycles and the cycles of life and death. Like, one thing has to die for another thing to be born. And she's pointing to the ways that that's actually happening right now. We're seeing a lot of the signs of collapse, but she's also pointing to all of these places where this new world is being born at the same time. And a lot of really amazing things that are happening right now. And I certainly relate to that in my own life. I've seen so much change. My, experience as a queer person, as a trans person. Like, when I was growing up, I had never even met a trans person or heard of a trans person. And now it's like, oh wow, I have so many people, so many role models I can look to, so many people who are doing such amazing things, and at the same time there's so many attacks happening. And some of that, she's pointing to some of the ways that when we win rights, when we are getting more political power, there's the backlash, there's this response. And she's also arguing that we're really in that time right now. And I think this year, it was just Transgender Day of Visibility, which is March 31st each year. So that was just this past week. And it was a really complicated emotional experience this year for me, as I really felt just how much suffering is created by those attacks that are happening right now. And I actually just in a lot of grief because I just lost a former mentee who I've worked with in the past who took their own life, who was trans. And, that's really brought home to me something that I'm aware of, that how much right now, as there's so many legislative attacks, including like the SAVE Act that the Senate is debating right now, where the basically voter disenfranchisement act. But within that, there's language about taking away health care and other rights for trans people, specifically like put into that act, which there's just not much reporting on it, but it really has an impact on, like, myself as a trans person and many others. We're following every one of these things, even if it's something that's not making it into the news. It's like, we know, and we're very impacted by it. And and one of those impacts is on people's mental health, on their health, and on folks actually taking their own lives. And yeah, so it's just like that news came right at the same time as Trans Day of Visibility for me, this person who I really care for, who's gone. And I don't know their whole story, but it feels so connected to what's happening. It's like, it feels like it's hitting my heart, something that was a little bit of an abstraction. And that grief is here. And then there's also this knowledge that, like, as a trans person and trans community, like, we are actually changing the world. We're making a new world, and that's very, very powerful. And that's part of why there is such a backlash, because of how much has been achieved, because of the ways that just our existence in this world is pointing to a different way of being. It's like breaking down some of the beliefs that our, patriarchal order is based upon. If people can choose their gender, if they can, if there can be more than two genders, if there can be actually this whole galaxy of gender expressions and experiences, then, like, why are men ruling the world or whatever, like, it really undermines some of the structure. So there's some reasons why the Republican Party has made it one of their goals to make trans people no longer exist. Like, that is a stated goal. So anyway, it's just complicated, and there's so many feelings, and I feel myself so much in the grief, in the anger, in the all of this, especially when it's like really hitting home. And just to like hold that too as part of this experience of equanimity. Like, these feelings also they're not something I want to push away or avoid. I want to feel all of this. And so there's a place in me that's like, as hard as everything is, I am still a yes to feeling all of this. Like, I am willing, I am consenting to feel all of this. And to me, that's part of my equanimity practice, is to just really allow all of that. That's this place of radical acceptance that's not saying any of it's okay. But what I am saying yes to is experiencing what I'm experiencing. And to be in this moment of so much grief and difficulty with full presence, full awareness, while still taking care of myself and, grounding myself in the natural world and finding that support. And I think just one more piece on the trees. I was just yesterday up in visiting this land up in Sonoma County where there's a group of Black and Indigenous and queer folks who are managing this big piece of land with these Indigenous practices of bringing fire onto the land to start to really bring back the health of the forest in this area that has been logged, over and over again, to bring back this healthy forest in this. They have 900 acres. It's a really beautiful project. And I just it was kind of like Rebecca's Soulnet is pointing to. It is this new world being born in the midst of this time that feels so hard. And I just really also thought about this metaphor of fire as also part of my equanimity, is actually it can be a really healthy, positive force. We experience fire often as this incredibly destructive force here in California, but actually it's land that is based on, that has been cultivated and cared for through fire for maybe thousands of years. There was regular practice of burning on sometimes 5-year, 10-year, 15-year cycles to really keep the forest healthy. So it's can the fire too be a part of my equanimity? And then I think, as I think of the trees, it's that too is part of the experience, and actually for some species that's what is going to bring in the next generation, is it needs that fire to come and make the seeds sprout and have the new seedlings come. They're actually born in this fire. So I'm just adding that in as well. This too could be part of the equanimity, is this fire. So I want to bring in just one more definition of equanimity this is from a Pali chant. It's translated into English. In the Theravada lineage, there's a chant called either the Four Boundless Qualities or the Four Immeasurables. It starts, I will abide, pervading one quarter with a heart filled with loving kindness, and then there's 4 sections: compassion, gladness or joy, and equanimity. So those are the 4 Brahmaviharas, these heart practices. And one of the lines in there is abundant, exalted, immeasurable, free from hatred or ill will. And that's, in a way, kind of another way of holding equanimity. For me, these practices of the Brahmaviharas are all about cultivating equanimity, as I have my heart, as much as possible, relate to myself and others with this heart of friendliness, of loving kindness. I meet the suffering, my own suffering, and the suffering of the world with compassion. I meet the joy and delight and creativity of the world with my joy. And then what's cultivated over time is this quality of equanimity. It's really holding it all in this balanced heart. And I feel that description from that chant, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, free from hatred or ill will, is this other description of this balanced heart that's really holding everything. I mean, it's very expansive. You just love those words, abundant, exalted, immeasurable. And those are really descriptors of what we cultivate in bringing all of these heart practices, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity together. And over time, that we're really building this capacity, this abundant heart, exalted beings, immeasurable qualities that can really bring, for me, so much ground in the midst of the storms, the fire and the storms and the wild waves of of this time. So I want to open up for just see what reflections and questions you all have around practice of equanimity or anything that came up for you. So for folks in the room, folks on Zoom, any reflections or questions? Okay, yeah, start with you and then go behind.
I want to thank you. I have the feeling that equanimity is the natural state of things, and that there are things that happen outside, things in our mind that disturb that. And what's important is to notice that disturbance, and either by noticing you let go, or have other mechanisms of letting go. I'll give one brief personal example. When I'm driving, and inconsiderate drivers just piss me off, and I want to curse them out. And I do. I say one quick curse word, and then I'm back to my equanimity state. In other situations, as I've said many times here, having some chocolate really puts me back to equanimity.
I love that. This is like the equanimity that and like includes briefly cussing people out and chocolate. Be like the new definition. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your beautiful talk. I love it when someone brings up equanimity because I always forget about it. Like even I reflect on loving kindness a lot, compassion a lot, joy, but like equanimity never comes to my mind. And whenever someone brings it up, oh yes, like I do have this value that I can practice this value. And it's hard to define it with words for me, but I have this visual that I always had, and maybe after your talk I will update it. So the definition I had was equanimity is like a mountain. So there can be wind or a storm or a sunny day, but a mountain is a mountain.
Yeah.
It's just the mountain doesn't move. But after your talk, maybe I want to add that mountain also shows up, and mountain is visible, and the mountain is, it doesn't edit itself like how people will think of it. It's just mountain is like authentic. It's not afraid to be kind of visible, just there. Yeah, that's, I guess, goes into equanimity to be like just showing up and existing authentically with all the things going around and expressing that too. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that word authenticity, I really resonate with that. And that's, I think, another word that I would bring in for equanimity is that authenticity. Because they're not all being asked to be some perfect meditator, you know? It's like actually inviting us to really be ourselves. Yeah. Thank you. I saw a hand over here. So I just want to like check in with our Zoom people. I don't see any hands there, so okay, go ahead.
Well, I thank you for your talk. I just wanted to share that I really appreciate your metaphor of the tree. That's really concrete and easy to visualize. You know, the roots of the tree are like solid, calm, always fully present. Maybe the top of the tree with branches and leaves swaying in the wind, the storms, it's beaten down, but yet it's all encapsulated in one tree where you can have both the calm roots and the occasional swaying or violent branches and leaves in the tree. So that I just really appreciate that imagery.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I also like, I mean, I already said this, but just to bring this in again, like there's the individual tree, but there's also the forest. And
Yeah.
I often think of like how much we're all connected, you know, and that equanimity actually isn't a solo practice. It's this practice of being in relationship, you know, with self, with other humans, with the natural world. It's, for me anyway, it's very much a practice in relationship. Yeah, thank
And
you.
also, you know, the Buddhist sitting under the Lodi tree, so it's nice
Yeah.
imagery of all.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate
Yeah, and the Buddha
talk
was
as
also
well.
born under a tree,
Yeah.
under was sacred in this grove of sacred sal trees, and the Buddha's mother was actually holding on to the tree at the moment of the Buddha's birth. So the trees were there, began, and then he, achieved his parinibbana also in a grove of sal trees. So many beautiful images of trees. Yeah, thank you. Okay, I saw a hand. Oh yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for the topic. I was thinking back on my dedication of merit here, the words we use, without too much aversion and too much attachment. And I often come back to those words because that's what, for me, is very helpful. And when I'm feeling too much attachment and I'm quite clear the suffering that comes from all that and too much aversion, I breathe. I breathe into it. I breathe into my heart, into a notion of gratitude and all of those things. So that's how I hold it. That's
Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful. Zoom people, anything? Oh, yeah.
A
go ahead.
quick comment on trees. Having been a retired gardener and all that. I love trees, and I love that they take in carbon dioxide and give us oxygen. So we're symbiotic. But I have a large acacia tree in front of my next door neighbor's yard, and I'm constantly cleaning up all the debris because my neighbors upstairs and my neighbors next door all have allergies and they're miserable these days because of the acacia blooms. I don't have those allergies, thankfully, but so I spend a lot of time every single day until the season is over cleaning up all the pollen and all the flowers that are dropping all over the place so that my neighbors won't be suffering as much with, they're taking Claritin and all these different things. So trees have can be a gray area. And some people hate the fact that their trees block their views, too.
Yeah. I, too, am allergic to the acacia trees. So it's like, okay, can I even include the acacia trees, in this, being with everything. Fortunately for me, it's a short season.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
Anyone else?
Let me see if there's anyone else before going back. No? Okay.
Just a random thought that came in while we were just talking now. Is there such a thing as having too much attachment to equanimity?
Well, I think in my definition of equanimity, it's like includes the places of, the stormy places. So I think it would be, if you were attached to it looking a certain way, if you're attached to equanimity being a certain experience, maybe you're attached to the part that feels steady, or even being attached to balance, like sometimes we're going to be unbalanced. It's like, sometimes you think of like riding a bicycle, there's like, you're gonna tip one way, you're gonna tip another way, and you come back to steadiness, but then also sometimes you crash, so. I think it comes back to that like attachment to outcome. I want this to be a certain way. That would be like a place to keep cultivating. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's all the time we have.
Great.
Announcements.
I have an announcement. I wanted to let people know that I'm going to be doing an event at East Bay Meditation Center on April 25th. It's open to everyone. It's online. That's a Sunday. Oh, I think it's noon, so I think it's after this. But anyway, I'll be in conversation with Dean Spade about this book, Love in a Fucked Up World. And I feel like this is also a little bit of an equanimity Dharma book. Can we really be with the difficulty of relationships and stay in alignment with our values? So I just wanted to mention that event is coming up.